Hello and welcome back. This is the Transforming Work videocast. How are you all doing? It's the 12th of December 2025. We've got a few days more before we wrap up. This is our last Transforming Work videocast of the year. It's flown by 2025. It's just gone by. And this has been a fantastic week, not just because of so many things happening at the TCM headquarters in London. We had a great launch that took place just yesterday. I'm going to come to that, but this is a week that we have had two videocasts, David. I don't think this has happened before. Two videocasts back to back. We had a fantastic conversation on Wednesday with the team at Egina Group, and today we're speaking at the C-suite at shawgibbs. So it's a really exciting week for us on the Transforming Work videocast. We've been doing this almost fortnightly with the PCA. I'm tired of introducing myself, but I'm Jonathan. I'm the manager of the PCA. We've got a fantastic group of members who have joined us from different parts of the world. If you're not a member yet at the PCA, please do join us. All you got to do is go to peopleprofessionals.org and you can join us and become a member. It's free. It's absolutely free. And you get a chance to meet with individuals within the people, culture, leadership space. We meet in the last week of every month. And we're having a final meeting next week on the 17th of December. So you can join us for that as well. But yesterday, let's draw attention to yesterday. Yesterday, we had the fantastic launch of the People Leader magazine. This is going to revolutionize the people, culture, and leadership space. So if you have not downloaded your free copy of the People Leader magazine, I suggest you go and do that right now. All you got to do, once again, let me just put that up on your screen. So all you got to do is go to thepeopleleader.com and you get a copy of People Leader magazine, which once again is a fantastic edition for anyone who's in the space of people, culture, and leadership. This, of course, is something that once again is building up something very special next year. We have the International People and Culture Week that takes place in the first week of May. So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be an exciting one. We're going intercontinental this time. So you've got a lot of insights coming from different corners of the globe. And of course, the big news, starting 2026 again with a bang, we've got the launch of the People and Culture book by David Liddle. And that's launching on January 14th. All right. And of course, Angus has contributed massively to that book. He's got really, really nice testimony, which we're going to try and break in today. Well, without further ado, once again, if you've joined us from different parts of the globe, say hello, use the LinkedIn comments section, the YouTube comments section. Tell us where you're joining us from. Tell us how you are making your workplace a better working scenario. But today, we've got two fantastic guests to wrap up this fantastic year. We've got the C-suite from shawgibbs joining us on the Transforming Work videocast. Of course, we're joined by Peter Connell, who's, of course, the CEO of shawgibbs. Before being the CEO, of course, he was the head of corporate finance at the organization, dealing with transactionals, due diligence, and business valuations as his day in, day out work. He particularly mentions the website. I was very curious about this, and I think David's going to get into this at some stage. You mentioned, Peter, that you like owner-managed businesses, and I guess that's got the hands-on approach that owner-managed businesses tend to have. He's also a rugby fan, and is very much involved with the local rugby club. So let's see if we can find some time for that. But we're lucky to have him because this is the time of the year he normally runs away to Austria for skiing in the mountains. We're lucky to have him here before he jets off to Austria for the skiing. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us on this videocast.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for the introduction.
You're welcome. And of course, we can see that Angus is in the momentum. He is joining us live. Angus, where are you joining us live from?
I'm near Loch Lomond, near just north of Glasgow.
North of Glasgow. There you go. And of course, Angus brings in 3 decades of experience in the legal and HR professional. Started out as a lawyer and then moved into the HR space. And he loves developing talent management and people strategies. He's worked across Europe, in the UK, the Middle East, Singapore, and Japan. And of course, loves building that human capital talent. Angus, thank you so much for making time once again and being part of the videocast.
Delighted to be here, Jonathan.
Thanks, Angus. And of course, holding this conversation together is the president of the PCA and the CEO of the TCM Group, David Liddle, who, of course, anchors these conversations with us every Friday. David, thank you so much for joining. I know you're really excited. You've had an exciting week with the People and Leader launch. How's that been? What's been the response so far?
Oh my goodness, it's been absolutely fantastic. The response has been incredible. The questions that we've been getting asked, the overall feedback that there was a massive gap for really high quality information for people leaders here in the UK and globally. I think it's really kind of slotted into a need that people saw was there. And we've got some great case studies, great material in there, lots of insights. And we've also had some great suggestions about making it even better for the next edition, which is going to be coming out in January. So it's gone out to 300,000 people. It's gone out across the social media. We'll be doing more sharing of information. So yeah, we're really excited. The People Leader magazine, it's a platform for events, summits, roundtables. And we're also, Jonathan, running our first global People Leader Live conference as part of International People and Culture Week next May, on the May the 7th. So the beautiful symmetry to the work we're doing through the conference and the work we're doing at the People and Culture Association, which I think, if I remember correctly, Jonathan, how much does it cost to join the PCA, the People and Culture Association?
Nothing.
It's free.
Costs nothing. It's
Wow. Free. Okay. You can't argue with that, Jonathan. And how much is the People Leader magazine to access, Jonathan, just out of interest?
Once again, nothing. All you got to do is click in peopleleader.com.
Peopleleader.com. Amazing. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. It's so fantastic to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation. Now, Angus, I know you're nice and safe. It looks like you've just taken your seatbelt off, Angus. It looks like you may just have arrived at location.
Yes, all good.
Amazing. Well, we're going to let you get yourself settled. I'm going to start a conversation off with Peter here, because I'm really curious to find out more, Peter, about yourself, your journey into leadership, maybe find out a bit more about shawgibbs for people who aren't familiar with the organisation. And then Angus will come over to yourself, hopefully, once you've got yourself settled in at location, and we can find out a little bit more about the amazing work you've been doing in the areas of leadership, people, but also we're going to dig in, as you would expect today, around justice and dispute resolution, because I know it's very, very close to your heart. But Peter, let's start with yourself, if we may. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your work you're doing at shawgibbs.
Yeah, of course. So actually, I've spent most of my working life at shawgibbs, joined here about 28 years ago. And as Jonathan said, I kind of initially qualified as a accountant specializing in audit. But during my career kind of doing audit, I really enjoyed working with owner-managed businesses, leading those individuals through their kind of journey of being part of their business, which resulted in me kind of specializing in corporate finance for a number of years, where really I was helping those people through the journey of ownership, really from startup through to when they were exiting / retiring their business.
Yeah.
All of that gave me a really sound knowledge and experience within the practice. So actually I was approached back in 2015 to take over as managing partner of the practice. And as part of my journey as managing partner, in 2015, 2016 is probably when the people culture really became important to us. We recognized there was a huge amount of technology disrupting the sector in which we were operating. And we wanted to build a business that very much focused around embracing that technology. But actually, we had to recognize that we were a people by people business. So we are all about people. Yes, we use process technology to help do a lot of the heavy lifting, but fundamentally, that's enabling people to do their job. And we took that strategy, ran it successfully ourselves for a few years, but then in November 2022, we secured some private equity investment to effectively supercharge what we were trying to do. We started on a bit of a buy and build strategy. A key part of that was investing and building out a C-suite team to help me support the running of the business. A key part of our strategy was around people and culture, and therefore I was very fortunate to be introduced to Angus, who came and joined us about 7 or 8 months ago and has made significant improvements into the business. But I suppose culminating in that journey, since we've taken private equity investment, we have undertaken 12 or 13 acquisitions.
Wow.
Look to integrate those acquisitions into the business, try and align the cultures to the extent that the business today has got about 680 people in it. Further acquisitions in pipeline, so we'll probably be about 850 by the end of the year. So quite an ambitious growth strategy. But actually, despite sitting here and saying that we've only done 12 or 13 transactions in that 3-year period, we've actually walked away from in excess of 225 transactions. And the reason we've walked away from many of them is because we just felt the culture, the people fit wasn't like what we were trying to do. And therefore just demonstrates the strength of having the right culture and people within a business in order to make a kind of a growth strategy really important for us.
Wow. So you're using cultural alignment as a key criteria when you're triaging and doing your due diligence on a potential acquisition, to the extent that it's almost a rate of almost 10 to 1, not 10 to 1, sort of, you know, but give or take. So a significant number.
Absolutely.
You'll be checked in.
It's the number one criteria we look at. People and culture first. And if the people and culture are right, we'll then look at the other metrics around it.
That's incredible. And to hear that from that sort of finance perspective, I mean, culture doesn't show up as an asset on the balance sheet per se. It's not a sort of tangible fixed asset that you might normally sort of be able to account for. How do you measure the value of culture, Peter? Is there a methodology that you use from a leadership lens to help you assess the value of this asset? Because you're describing a very powerful asset.
Listen, we've got lots of KPIs within the business. We look at a number of factors, including things like productivity of the team and things like that. But ultimately, one of the true metrics that we measure, and actually this has got even better since Angus has come in. We're a training organisation. We'll take on 25-ish apprentices this year, and as a result of that, we do need some natural attrition of people post qualification.
Yeah.
The hope is that many of our people will go into industry and come back as clients of ours in the future, and it's therefore really important to us to make sure we send them off in the best possible way. But of course, we also need to make sure we keep on to people that we want to keep on. So we measure our retention rates or attrition rates. We typically, in terms of retention, want to retain on an annual basis 80 to 85% of our people, purely because we have that trainees that need to move on. But actually, since Angus has come in, since some of the kind of strategies we've put in place around learning and development and other areas, our people retention at the moment is in excess of 90%, which is the highest I've ever known it in my entire career here, which is great in the business at the moment because we're fast growing, we're still growing, so we can accommodate all of these people. And that's a really positive journey for us.
Oh, wow. And now, I mean, so very warm welcome everyone who's joining us on LinkedIn. And one of the big questions that I get asked an awful lot, and I know it's a big question for many people, is how do we make people and culture a priority in the C-suite, to the extent where the chief executive officer is going to say on the record, on a LinkedIn live session, that people and culture is the number one strategic priority and a key feature in the way they think about acquisition and growth of the organization. And not just that, it's actually then how do we weave that in to create those really powerful experiences through our talent acquisition and development of our people within the organization. We've only been going for 10 minutes, of which Jonathan was doing introductions for a good 7 of those, Peter. And here we are answering some profoundly powerful questions about alignment with the C-suite, because I think what I've heard, and you might have your own views on this, Peter, but what I've heard is people believe, I think very wrongly, that CEOs and C-suite leaders are more focused on hard business metrics. They're focused on some of the real challenges driven by political, economic, social, technological, and other factors in the organization. And people and culture is permanently pushed down the list of priorities. And here you are saying this is the number one priority. Do you see that at all, Peter? Do you have any views on that?
Yeah, listen, I think it is, because as I said earlier, people are the most important part of the business. It's what it's what we sell and it's what our clients buy. They want to engage with our people. They want to understand our people. The reality is, David, you're absolutely right. And things like economical, technological, artificial intelligence, everything in our business at the moment is really important. And we are looking at that. We're looking at it from the point of view, how do we use it as a tool to help our people? Certainly not using it as a tool to replace people. It's how do they help our people? But, if we don't get our culture and our people strategy right, it results in higher levels of attrition. It results in a less high quality service to our client. And, you talk about economics, the likelihood is that it will result in the wrong economics for us, because what we'll see a significant amount of recruitment costs. We'll see a significant amount of lost time due to training and development of getting people up to speed to do basic tasks. And often, and I've seen it in some of our competitors, where you don't get your people strategy right, you're going to have to pay inflated salaries, which is going to impact your margin just to attract people into the business.
Wow. So there's almost every metric that is so important in terms of keeping our leaders awake at night. We've just gone into 0.1 growth, a negative growth in the in the economy, it would appear in the last period. You know, these issues are very present. They are keeping our leaders awake at night, and this appears to be the number one priority, is putting people and culture at the top of those, because it's delivering against each of those metrics. We're going to come back to this a lot, Peter, because it's absolutely phenomenal, and thank you for sharing it. Could you just say a few words, Peter, before I come to Angus? Just tell us a little bit about shawgibbs, the work that you're doing, what kind of customer profiles you have, and what sort of your value proposition at shawgibbs, just so people understand what the business is about.
Yeah, so in terms of the business, we operate in the south of England. We're an accountancy and advisory practice that effectively operates within the SME and private client stroke high net worth sector.
Yeah.
So very much looking after owner-managed businesses and individuals, whether standalone or surrounding those owner-managed businesses, in terms of providing them with a range of services. Now, a lot of our work here is what we refer to as compliance services. It's that thing that you have to do every year. You have to prepare your accounts. You have to submit your corporation tax return. Individuals have to submit their personal tax return. We help with things like payroll, VAT. So it's providing a lot of those in-year services to our clients. And I suppose my view around that kind of sector is, if you do that well by investing in the right people, using the right technology to deliver it, you can charge a fair price and deliver it at a very, very high quality. And then the desire around that then is to invest in a team of experts, which is very much one of our values, but a team of experts, which are specialist advisors that can go in and start providing advisory services to CEOs of owner-managed businesses, CFOs of slightly bigger businesses where they have them, in terms of various different aspects of the business, whether that's VAT advisory, whether that's corporation tax advisory, whether that's looking at employment taxes, overseas employees. Areas around VAT is a big one. So a lot of it you can see is tax driven, but actually we're extending constantly our range of services that we can provide to support owner managed businesses. So one of the recent businesses that came and joined it was actually a HR consultancy business.
Okay.
Because very often our clients come to us to ask us about their business, ask us general business advice. And part of that is, you know, I want to employ people. How do I get my people proposition right?
Yeah.
Or I have these issues with people. Can you help me sort them out? So very much a key part of what we're trying to do is ultimately look at those CEOs, CFOs of owner-managed businesses and develop a suite of both in-year kind of compliance, accounting support, in-year tax support, but a whole suite of advisory services to help them run their business more efficiently.
Well, I mean, it's fantastic. So, I mean, you're the trusted partner to businesses across the country, and we know that SMEs are the sort of backbone of the economy. Now, just a curious question as well, if I may. So, you're probably the only organisation that people would have on a retainer. You don't tend to retain your lawyers. You might retain an HR consultancy. You might have a marketer, but we know professional services, accountancy services, probably the only regular retained relationship that the small business owners, the entrepreneur, would have. Your position in people and culture, primarily in the way that you think about how you run your own business at shawgibbs, Peter, how you acquire businesses. What do your clients say? Do you feel that you influence your clients as well to begin to also think about people and culture as an asset in the way that you do? Because I know a lot of small business owners are just doing the job, working hard, try and get what they've done. They're passionate entrepreneurs, but they again aren't always putting this at the top of their inbox. I just wonder, does that feature in conversations you have?
It does feature in conversations. And I suppose with this recent business that joined us, a business called Reality HR, that's kind of, it's a tool now in our armor to go and speak more to CEOs about the importance of people and culture in the business, so that we can drag them into that part of the conversation. Listen, from our point of view, what our clients see is they see continuity of people, they see how we develop people, and they come and talk to us about that. How do you retain this person for so long? Isn't it great how this person has come from being a junior on a job to somebody who's now leading an assignment? And that does engage and start a conversation about the learning and development and the promotion and progression that we provide to people in the business. Yeah. And that's incredibly important, and it does start a conversation. We now just have that additional tool to say, actually, you know, we've got some real experts who can talk to you about this stuff. Go and have a conversation with them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, look, we've got a lot of people joining us across LinkedIn and elsewhere. If you've got any questions about how to make people and culture a hard reality in your own organisations, I think we've got a man here who can definitely help you with that. So please do feel free to ask us any questions, contributions. Danny, it's great to have you join us here today. Good to have you joining, and nice to see you again. Thank you so much, Danny. And again, anyone else who's there, please do let us know if you've got any questions. But Angus, I'm going to come to yourself. It's nice to see you all parked up and settled into your location. And yeah, we met when I was doing the case studies for people and culture back in the summer, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And what really stood out for me when we were talking, the way that you blended a deep commitment to justice, culture and leadership, and your commitment to not just sort of mediation and dialogue, although they really run deep in the way that you think and resolution, but the way that you framed justice in shawgibbs. And although you've been there a relatively short time, less than a year, as Peter was saying, I think the impact, as Peter said, that you were describing to me was absolutely fundamental, and helping make the shift in the organisation away from pure process-driven HR and people relations to much more to an environment which is focusing on restoring relationships, healing harm, building dignity, a very human-centred approach to the people function. And I felt that came through in the case study. And I've got a feeling when the book comes out, Angus, if I could recommend anyone shoots to a particular page, I hope they'll fire to your case study and dig into it and learn from yourself. So it's a real privilege to have you join us today. So thank you. And it would be great to hear a bit more about you and your story and kind of how you shaped your thinking about the people function as a people leader.
Yeah, well, thanks, David. I'm flattered with all of that. I think I might just say you don't really need me, actually. You can see Peter's an evangelist for this area. And if you've got that in the CEO, then my job's so much easier, right, as the people partner. So I'm doing the chief people officer role here. Pretty much the main reason I joined was because Peter spoke like that with me around what he felt about people and culture and the leadership in that. So it certainly is a great platform from which to prosecute a strategy. You talked about bringing. You used the word justice. I think it's quite a strong word. I think more around conversations, mediation, relationships. So I think not that there's been a lot of opportunity in 8 months to change the way we do those things, but already from Peter's discussion of how he's partnered with and bought in 11 or 12 firms, those firms, part of the culture that Peter talked about, part of those were on the harder metrics around retention, attrition, perhaps their employee engagement scores, all the stuff you'd expect to see. But actually what was going on were conversations around the top table with the partners and the senior employees around how they do things, how they work, how they pass work on, how they deal with their clients, how they deal with their people. And those conversations, in fact, whilst I didn't see any science from Peter and the guys, they certainly had that high on their list, if not number one, as Peter explained. So actually him and his team were looking for those attributes from the get-go in the conversations. And those due diligence conversations take 2, 3, 4 months to get, even longer to gestate and get over the line. So what you've got is a basis for inorganic opportunity that's been brought in, but very much from the start there's been conversations, relationships, and actually one of my jobs, which has been a pleasure, has been interceding in those partner relations and having a role as a partner services CPO, if you like, where I can take a little bit of the load off Pete, because he's brought these 56 odd partners in. They all have a relationship with him, and as we grow, that's not sustainable on every level. So I can at least bring a conversation, relationship, progress, discussion around business at the partner level, which is the leadership of the firm. So it sets the tone. So I it's less around changing us to justice led. It's more around early conversation, mediation, and relationships allow those nothing really to permeate too far, so we can have we can have an early intervention if we're needed, because the Teams is available, and I've spent my whole 8 months going around all the offices with Pete, so that's been great.
Amazing. Can I imagine with those 56 partners as well, there's going to be a sort of a pecking order that might become established, and we kind of very quickly see hierarchy starting to form and power starting to shape and different aspects of that. And it feels like what you're trying to do is sort of instill a sense of collaboration, more around discourse, conversations, and getting issues resolved. How do you manage that in an environment where I would imagine pecking orders and hierarchy would almost just naturally begin to form? Or have I got that wrong? Does it naturally lend itself to collaboration and co-creation?
Well, perhaps I answer. I'm sure Pete will have a comment on that. What we've done, I think, is there's some level of separation. For example, we've gathered together what we call the larger portfolio holders.
Yeah.
For a conversation about the strategy and the business.
Yeah.
And they're not just the former managing partners of those 12 firms. It's very much those people who've got the larger client bases, and they've got a certain voice. And actually, it's a very interesting voice for Pete and myself to listen to and interrogate. We also then spend time actually going round, and I think it's a strategy, it's a proactive strategy from Pete to go round these offices. We're in the south of England, so we can still just about do it.
Yeah.
We go and sit round the table and have discussions regularly. It's not just once every 2 months a Teams call, it's a face-to-face. So you can then pick up.
I think we've just lost Angus there for a second, Peter. So let me come to yourself. So I think what Angus was describing there was the sort of what in old money might have been called management by walking about, and the ability to go out and listen. And it sounds like the organisation's grown, but it's not grown so large that it's lost that ability to have that sort of that human contact, that human touch. Why is that important, Peter, to yourselves? Why would you see that as a key part of the culture?
I think it is really important. As Angus was kind of saying there just before he got cut off, we still go out and speak to those larger portfolio holders within the practice at the moment, because it's interesting to understand from their perspective what we need to do to iron out wrinkles is actually how it's been positioned, because actually fundamentally the business is working well together. But I think the challenge back to them then is actually we're lucky that the organisation is still small enough to go and speak to 56 people individually. The challenge is that within the practice wider, we have over 100 portfolio holders, so there is quite a lot of people. But it's how do you engage those people who are running bigger portfolios, those people who are driving the business forward, those people who are doing the business development? How do we get them to engage with the next generation of people coming through to provide some training and development to them, but also use it as a tool to feedback to us? So there's a number of feedback mechanisms that we have in the business. Working with those larger portfolio holders is one of them. I'm hoping that Angus is going to come on and talk to you about our people and culture groups within the business, because that's also a selection of a wider group of individuals who can come back and give us feedback on how another cohort of partners are feeling about the business and where they're going from there.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk, David? Can you?
Please, no. I mean, I love those ideas, those cross-functional groups coming together. So Angus, more on those would be.
Yeah, I think. Hopefully I won't cut off. I think it's. I was getting to that. I think you've got lots of different ways you need to cut the organisation up. So that you can get to as many people as possible and have decent conversations. It's not just about the setup. It's then how you use those various committees and groups and what they discuss. What are the topics? And you can get into some really good ones. You want to answer the difficult questions and have the people who are interested in doing that. So there's a people and culture committee, which is more. I've selected them as sort of people friendly, particularly interested in talent management and attraction and all things in the people space. There's also a more junior group, which I used to call a strategy group, but it's actually we've called it the culture and collaboration working group.
Nice.
And that's jumping on the survey results, for example, and really digging into what 3 or 4 things are we going to do right across the group. But it's also looking at role frameworks and grading and some techie bits. within HR, because it's people who are right in the middle of the organization who it seems to matter. You know, it's your old middle manager. They sort of do all the work, they manage down and up.
Yeah.
So they're your heartbeat. So let's get them together and have a proper discussion. And I think the slight difference is having an open and vulnerable discussion with them. I'm not a person coming in saying, directing the traffic, saying this is what we want from you, like a partner would. It's more like, guys, you're part of this firm. What do you think?
Yeah.
And actually it's quite courageous for them and us, but and actually not everybody responds. But I do think it's a grown-up way of having a conversation with people and treating them like adults earlier than you might have done in a professional service firm of old.
And what kind of impact and benefit do you see that having, that you're treating people like adults, you're creating spaces for them to speak out? Some people maybe less so, some people more reticent, some people are like, I'm just here to do the job. I work to live, and I'm comfortable with that. And then there's other people who are probably going to be more wanting to be outspoken. How do you manage that? And what are the benefits, Angus, that you're seeing, if you like, through the kind of lens of people, culture and leadership and productivity? Because that's got to be one of our focuses as well.
Definitely. No, always one eye on the bottom line, right?
Yeah, of course.
Making us go faster and returns. I think
of course.
The people that we've selected in both committees are more of the types that are going to already talk and come forward.
Yeah.
So you've got a good caucus of 25 people who are representative mostly of the groups across the firm. Obviously, that'll get more difficult as we grow further. I think that what we get from that is input on any of the talent programs, the reward schemes, all of the wiring of the firm to allow us to shape the strategy and the execution. So, for example, we've been using them on role frameworks and grading and career profiles, success profiles. What do I need to do to get to the next level? What training would I need? What experience do I need? What do I have to call out? So that's all good. But what I'm still trying to work on is how do we deal with the various types of people in the organization? In old terms, you'd have an A, B, and C player. The A players sort of look after themselves, and my job is to make them, incentivize them to go faster, both be more productive and progress through the firm. I think that always the difficult group is the B group, who just want to come in and give a good innings at the firm, and that's fine. But as a sort of definitionally, as we get bigger and more demands on us, what is a good outcome? What is good productivity? I think there's a bit of a challenge in there for us as to how fast we can make that caucus of very important people stay with the firm and grow. And as Pete said, we've got them staying with the firm, so we're retaining them, but there's a little bit more work to do about what we require from them as part of staying. And I think that's an interesting conversation that can be quite disruptive to culture, because you don't push it to be super high performing, because people like to come in and do a decent job. But you need you need to turn the heat up a little bit, and the key is, what does that do with, how does that what happens to culture when you do that?
No, massively. And it's a really interesting point as well, because I think that A, B, and C sort of levels are really interesting. But sometimes we turned a bit of a blind eye to the bad behaviour of our star players in the A group, which then sends out messages to B and C that those behaviours are either tacitly approved or there's a different set of rules. And it feels that, and also things are shifting, because the C players are sometimes being the ones who are disruptive, speaking truth to power, not really focused in on the role. But as the world of work is being disrupted and changes, then their disruption suddenly becomes a valuable driver of creativity, and actually the whole focus is shifting. And it feels like you're sort of centering around dialogue, conversations, open spaces, open challenge, listening first is a key way of actually almost creating harmony between those groups. They're learning off each other. Would that be fair? Would you see there's more of a leveling out between those A, B, and C as you create those spaces, or would that as an oversimplification?
Yeah, I think I'd like Pete to come in on that a little bit. I think we're early days on it. I think it's been a little bit, not one or two steps up from slightly socialist. In that people come in. That's fine. We get them to go through their process of passing exams, and then we get them onto client work. That's fine. I think as we get bigger, we need to be thinking about different groups and how we can motivate them slightly differently. So I think there's slightly more, not call it horses for courses, but I think my job is to work with Pete to motivate and incentivize those different groups in slightly different ways. And the starting point of that is having conversations, and I suppose they'd be more with the A stroke top of the B players who can help us with that. And I think the next journey is to jump in a bit further. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think you're always going to have that situation where the A players are going to step out from the crowd.
Yeah.
Well, I always say to people here, you've got to root it at shawgibbs for as long as you want to be here, because you have the ability to create your own opportunity in the future. But you have to be hungry, you have to have a desire, you have to want to work hard to achieve it, get a very solid technical grounding. We'll do all we can to provide the training to support you to do it, but you need to want to do it. Yeah. So you're always going to have that A people who are pulling ahead. And I think within our business, we always want that, because we want to develop internally those leaders of the future. So it's really important. And I think the challenge is more to make sure that your Bs are operating at a high enough level to support those As, and there's nobody dragging you down. And that you have to work to manage the people in that C to get them up to those Bs. And we're very fortunate within the business. We've got great management, we've got good training, good development. We don't have a big, if any, cohort of people sitting in that C range at the moment, because we put everybody in that B of coming in, doing a solid job, doing some good output, and working well for us and for yourselves.
No, absolutely. And I think that sort of transfer of knowledge and expertise as well, whether it's through coaching conversations, mediation, obviously at times of challenge, is a way again of bringing everyone with us. You're almost all kind of learning from one another. And I guess that kind of creates those learning communities and those learning spaces, which helps everyone to grow. And I suppose, Peter, come into yourself, because obviously, we're talking about people and culture, not in an abstract sense, but in a really genuinely powerful sense. But ultimately, the fiduciary responsibility of the director is to generate shareholder value, shareholder wealth. And this needs to show up as productivity and profit. And there's often sometimes I think I personally see it as a false dichotomy between people, purpose and profit. And it's almost like they're all disconnected, but it feels like you're connecting particularly the people and purpose. Could you say more about profitability and productivity and performance? Another set of P's, just throwing them in there, but how do they show up for you driving and delivering the results to your PE backers who expect the return on their investments, and turning some of this into profit? Because I see profit as an outcome of a positive culture, as a very positive way of expressing a positive culture. I just wondered what your thoughts were, and how do you make it happen?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I think if you've got a very happy, engaged team around us, which we do here at the moment, then they will work hard for you.
Discretionary effort comes in there.
They stay. So that economics works around lack of training, lack of recruitment fees, lack of inflated salaries, and from that economics, it works as well. But actually, the thing here is we've got a very happy, engaged workforce here. People know what they need to achieve. People are driven to achieve it. Yes, there's probably more that Angus would like to do around that reward and recognition piece within his team. As he said, he's only been here 8 months, so there's a lot more we can do in that. But ultimately, having a very happy, very rewarding and engaged workforce here, that productivity comes, and with that productivity coming on board, the performance comes with it. So those financial numbers naturally follow it. I think there is a history within private equity businesses that there is some concern that they put profit before people, but actually I think that industry, it's a really unfair justification on them. I believe that industry now firmly recognizes the importance of people, and if you treat your people right, actually the economics within the business are much better than if you don't get your people proposition right, because a happy, engaged, motivated and driven workforce will deliver more profitability for you than a team that's unhappy, that's churning, where you're resulting in significant downtime, significant training time to just get them up to speed to do the basics. So I think the industry as a whole has recognized that and has positioned itself and transitioned itself to recognize getting your people strategy right is really important.
So, I mean, we were interviewed, as Jonathan mentioned at the start of the meeting today, that we interviewed the Chief People Officer and CEO, Paul Dawson from Magina Group, car parking wardens and support there. And he said exactly the same. So they're PE backed, and he said exactly the same as yourself, Peter. And I think there's some really interesting misconceptions and stereotypes about the concept of PE backing in organizations, but this is 2 chief execs we've spoken to in the space of 2 days who've said exactly the same. So, I'm going to put that down as a trend and a pattern as far as I'm concerned now, because that seems to me that we're starting to hear very similar things.
One of the things about us having, going back to what I said earlier about Angus would love to work more on our recognition and work policy, but actually one of the things that having the support of a private equity organization run our business is it enables us to invest better back into our business. We have within our business a learning and development academy now, which is designed at creating and developing the leaders of the future. That's a significant investment that if we didn't have the support of our private equity backers to develop something like that, we wouldn't be able to deliver that. And the intention of that is to create the leaders of the future. We've promoted 4 partners internally within the business within the last 2 months. And that's all from having that private equity backing, fundamentally. Without that private equity backing, I suspect we wouldn't have had the resources, financial or people, in order to be able to develop that.
That's a fabulous point. Very, very fabulous point. Angus, let's move forward a little bit and think about 26. This is the last of our Transforming Work videocasts for 2025. So I think it affords us a little opportunity to think ahead into the next year. Kind of what words would you use in your ideal state to describe the future people and culture landscape within shawgibbs? And what are you doing, I suppose, with my follow-up to help achieve that? So what would be the kind of words or phrases that you'd like to use to describe the culture as you would see it in 2026? And what would you do to help bring that to a reality?
Yeah, it's always good to look forward, isn't it? I think we spend too much time backwards. I'd say more collaborative and more integrated. Those 2 words spring to mind. We're on the, as Pete said, we not before my time, only one within my time. We brought in these 12 firms, so that's quite a task. No matter how much the cultural leadership and sense and metrics were aligned at the top table, there's still different ways of doing things down in the depths where people are actually doing the work. So reality. So 26, I'd quite like to find a couple of threads which I can really build on, which really define shawgibbs' culture, the group culture. I think still there's some great. We've got a great backdrop and work to date to draw on in order to get there. One of the values is collaboration. It's very helpful for me and Pete to be able to pull on that and say, and in fact, it's in the scorecard I brought in for the partners. It's one of their 4 particular balanced one for them, which was around shawgibbs group collaboration. It allows me to have a conversation and a question. So what are you doing outside of your legacy firm? And I think in 26, I'd really like to build on what we're doing, everybody's doing across, in fact, and actually put quite an emphasis on that, maybe disproportionate or some weighting towards some recognition around the collaborative part. So I think that's where I'd like to go. So and a postscript would be, Pete's referenced it. I think we need to find, there's a little bit of an unanswered question about what's in it for me for the mid-level person within this type of firm. At the moment, most of the market doesn't mostly reward them financially. It's more about training and progression. I think we could stand out a bit if we gave them, something to shoot at, which is, maybe gives them something in their pocket a bit more quickly. But that's, Pete's referenced it. We need to debate that a bit more.
Let's just kind of, because I've just noticed a question. Sarah Saeed, thank you so much for your question. I think you just answered it actually. Kind of, I don't know if you'd seen the question, Angus. But what Sarah's talking about is how can we enhance intrinsic benefits and the intrinsic motivators that you've just been describing in a values-driven environment. And what do you think might be some of the parameters? I guess some of the practical advice that we can give to be able to create that sense of intrinsic benefit. And what I also would kind of add on to Sarah's question is you've gone silo busting a little bit in the way that you've created your balanced scorecard and thinking of collaboration across the group. So I suppose thinking about how that then helps you to create that group-wide collaboration, as well as delivering those intrinsic benefits for individuals in the workplace. I think you started to touch on it. I just wonder if there's any other thoughts. And Peter,
Yeah.
your thoughts on
I'll
this.
let Pete talk. To Pete sort of fluent in this stuff. I think there's a balance here. I mean, definitely the attraction of the group is it's a very flexible working environment. People can bring their life to work, and the personal bit is it been slightly surprised. I've been in life in the city and overseas. But personal piece at shawgibbs is very important, and actually it should have been more important when I was in the banks and other things. But it was sort of, you were more an asset and left it as you got on the train.
Yeah.
But here it's very important, and people's lives are important, and that's shawgibbs values that, and people value shawgibbs valuing it, if you like. So everything around the well-being space is a good area to actually grow and broaden and sort of be well-being centric, perhaps from an intrinsic benefit perspective, isn't a bad strategy. And I think that will fit a certain genre or crowd within shawgibbs. But I think there's also, as I've said before, there's other people would like a little bit, if I go faster, will you pay me some more money? And I'm okay about having both in the organization. We just need to be clear about and transparent how we offer those different opportunities, call them benefits and recognition for the different people in the organization.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for the question. Peter, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to ask you the slide. I'm going to ask Sarah's question. This is a fantastic question, really powerful, because it talks about this kind of the human need, human motivation, and how we can align the needs and motivations and intrinsic benefits of the individual with the needs and motivations and intrinsic benefits of the organization. And therefore, we create this powerful connection between the organization and the individual's driving common purpose. But in that sort of intersection between the two sits leadership, Peter. And I just wonder, through your perspective as a sort of senior leader, the senior leader in the organization, have you had to flex your leadership style from one form to another to help create the environment that you're doing? Or was it natural? Was it intrinsic to you as a leader, or have you had to change? How would you describe your leadership style?
It's definitely has to change. As particularly if you look at the firm shawgibbs, we've gone from an organization that had 100 colleagues in 2022 to now close to 700 colleagues. Leadership style has to change there. Now, my desire in leadership always is to empower people to do the role, to give them the tools to do it, to give them the direction as to what they're doing, to listen to their feedback. So that collaboration piece, that feedback is really, really important to us. But through setting clear objectives, clear goals to people, giving them the tools to do it, through being a reactive employer, effectively, by just listening to people, making tweaks to what we need to do, we've created a great environment. But there has been times when you needed to turn around and say, guys, actually at the end of the day, we've got deadlines to meet as well. We need to deliver deadlines. We have a very, as a business at the moment, we're going into a very, very busy period with tax return filing deadlines, etc., etc. People know what they need to deliver. The expectation is they need to deliver. It's going to be a big shift for some people going into this period, but actually people are clear. They've had plenty of planning. They'll get the support, and they know they just need to get on and do it. So we do transition that.
And can you? I mean, maybe just giving you some time to think about. Can you think of an example or a time in your leadership as you've gone through the M&As? Because M&A is a really great place that tests us in that sort of furnace of change that tests our leadership. Is there a particular moment in time where you can look back, Peter, where you changed your leadership style from one form or another to help develop this people and culture focus? Or is there a particular moment or an incident or example through an M&A or anywhere in the career where you felt, that I started here and I ended there?
Yeah, I suppose you've got instances when maybe parts of the business aren't performing as well as you would have expected, because you can sit down and set objectives, set targets for people, give them ideas of what they need to do, give them tools to do it. And my style then is to empower people to get on and do it. And just sit back. Of course, where you kind of sit back too much and they don't deliver, performance is an issue. There has been instances in the past where you've had to go in and take more of a heavy hand on it. A heavy hand is probably too much, but where you have to be more directive, more assertive, more questioning of the performance of people, where you're kind of, it's not micromanaging, but more proactively managing that aspect of the business because performance has been there. We try not to do it, but I sometimes think people that when they get into that spiral of things not working as well, that they don't see the clarity around what that future holds or where the direction of travel they need to go. So you absolutely need to move from that transformational leadership into a more of a directional leadership where you're kind of almost insisting that they have to do X, Y, and Z to find their way out of the woods effectively.
Yeah. And how do you manage that sort of from your own perspective of transitioning from that transformational empowerment support, almost like a coaching approach, to one where you maybe have to become a little bit more directive, just a bit firmer, just clarifying how do you manage that transition? Does it come easy, or do you find that sort of
it's not something that comes easy because my natural style is to go back to that collaborative transformational type of role. But you know, I suppose I even take a transformational collaborative role in terms of doing that, because what I tend to do is, rather than going in there myself and giving that direction, I build a team around who are best suited to pick out areas of the weaknesses to come in and support on that. So it's still a very collaborative approach in terms of finding a solution to that problem, but I'm bringing in experts in specific areas to tackle specific problem pieces.
So you can set that kind of framework, role modeling those behaviors. You kind of can adjust when you need to, but don't necessarily have to, because you have a team of people, specialists and experts, who can actually dig in and deliver some of that accountability and structure around whatever the specific area is that's required. So a lot of that's then about having trust in the management, the leadership team, your executive leadership team, because they have the skills and expertise to deliver.
The biggest challenge we have as leaders is to make sure that you build a really good team around you. And I've been very fortunate that I work with some great quality people, both in terms of the C-suite, people like Angus, but also within the technical leadership team. I've got some good people there who can go in and tackle these issues with me alongside them. You know, it's not that I'm sitting back and not making those difficult decisions. We communicate what we're doing, what we're achieving, what we need to achieve. But I'm very fortunate that rather than somebody like me going in and just making demands, those requests are then made in such a way that we can guide them as to the direction of travel, as opposed to just making demands and setting back and seeing where they go.
So I imagine through the M&A process, it gives you a sort of pipeline of leaders into the organisation. You talked earlier about sort of rejecting significantly more into the organisation than you took on board. And you said people and culture was a really clear sort of focus there. I'm going to imagine, and I'd be really curious to know your thoughts, that your chemistry with the leader and your sense of potential within the leadership of the organisations that you're acquiring and building up your own leadership talent pipeline may also have been a criteria, or
it's always something we look for. You know, I've been very fortunate in some of the businesses that we've kind of merged in with us that there's been some great quality people in it. We have a fantastic head of tax within the business, called Naomi Stewart, who came from a business that came on board about 18 months ago, and you know, she's really flown into that role. She's gripped it, she's grown it, she's got a very, very good team. She now manages about 130 people in the organization. And absolutely, without her coming on board from an acquisition, we would be a step behind where we are now.
Wow. Okay. So it really has given you this sort of acquisition of companies that are aligned to the culture, adding, you know, kind of growing the organization, giving you different aspects of the business to help you diversify the business, but also giving you talent coming into your leadership population. It sounds like, you're making M&A sound like the almost a dreamlike state.
The flip side of it also is that we give people opportunities, because within a larger organization, particularly within a growing organization, there's more roles and opportunities for people to grow into. Well, I'm not saying Naomi wouldn't have gone into an amazing role within the organization because she had the caliber and the potential. But absolutely, you know, we've given her an opportunity to take a tax team, a subject she's passionate about, an area of work that she is very knowledgeable in, and grown something that's incredibly successful. And you know, we've recruited some people into that team recently, and it's been down to the success of Naomi to effectively identify that talent, to provide better quality service for our clients. And so I firmly believe it's a two-way thing. We find talent and we provide opportunities for talent.
Wow. Well, I mean, it really is. It's a phenomenally positive analysis of the kind of win-win nature of the organisation, and your affirmation and obviously respect for Naomi comes through so clearly as well, Peter. I'm going to kind of wrap up in a minute as we just sort of think a little bit more about the people and culture environment and what that looks like. But I don't think we can have a conversation about professional services and the needs of the SMEs that you're working with without using those two lovely little letters, which have been used a lot through the year and going to be used a heck of a lot more through 2026. I'm talking, of course, of AI. You talked, Sarah, in your question about paradigm shifts from COVID back to normal again. So can I pick your question up? Because I'm conscious of time. Can I talk about the paradigm shift as we're starting to shift into agentic 2 and the role of AI, both in accountancy, professional services, but for your customers? Threat or opportunity, Peter?
I definitely see it as an opportunity. I think within our industry, people want to buy people. They want to sit in front of people. They want to talk to people. They want to hear from people. Notwithstanding that, I also think that if you get technically the right people to deliver the work, at the moment, it can still do it better than technology. I think the opportunity comes from using technology, because I think technology can do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. You know, I use a classic example of writing a piece of tax legislation. A AI bot will get it 80-85% right.
Yeah.
You need somebody who understands the legislation, the different aspects, the interrelationships of, it's never one tax, there's always multiple tax that interact between each other. You need somebody who's got the ability to understand, interpret that, to provide that kind of polished advice to people. There is absolutely threats from AI in our business. For example, as I said earlier, we're a training organization. If you get AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting, to do some of the research, to do some of the basic repetitive tasks, how, and this is a challenge I've set Angus, and this will be a theme for 26 and beyond for Angus, how do you train the accountants of the future when technology is doing the basic grounding that we used in the past to train people?
So how do you build that succession planning as well into the organisation if there is just being disrupted by Synthesia and other training platforms? There's myriad training platforms there, and there's sort of early stage. So real challenge. Angus, I'm going to ask the same question to yourself, because I think Peter's thrown down a bit of a gauntlet for you in terms of your talent acquisition and development. But do you see it as a threat or an opportunity, Angus?
Massive opportunity. Yeah, I'm a sort of, not even a gifted amateur, but I'm a lay, an interested observer, and I just know it's all about adopting it and partnering with it and using it to empower us. So I'm very much a positive, bring it on and let's work out the best use of it, right down to agentic AI, all of the types of products. And what we've done, and what I did pretty quickly coming into the organization, was try to garner interest. It was another group, actually, culturally, another group, totally different set of people. I just went out and said, right, who's into this stuff? I just sent a shot out to the firm, and I got 27 people back from all different walks of the organization, a lot of the younger people. And this is another almost a countercultural piece for professional services, because the juniors probably have more idea and and should have a stronger voice. And that's a difficult thing for a partner-led hierarchy. So actually, it's a really good disruptor of a traditional culture, where now we have got some governance around each of these groups, where they're now working on AI and innovations for each of their service lines. There's 4 or 5 of those. And we have a group at the top which is looking at piloting and trialing those with a risk lens. So there is this data privacy risk lens, but we've all got to get over that and get over it quickly. We must lead with opportunity and then talk about the risks and the threats as part of that opportunity.
That's really interesting. And again, in the book, which you very generously contributed to, Angus, I talk about the development of AI centres of excellence to address these very specific issues: ethics, morals, risk, people, culture, leadership, and ultimately, how do we harness the potential? It sounds like you're creating those. Now, Angus, when we spoke, I mean, I genuinely hope people will read the case study, but you were talking about, you'd say we can't talk about culture in the abstract. And I think that's very much what we've been doing here today, talking about some very real practical activities. You talked about it having to show up in the behaviours people reward, the language we use, the way we respond when things go wrong. So you talked about this sort of sense of culture being very much about how we behave, how we treat each other, and almost this sort of sense of it's an emotional, subjective experience that we have in the workplace. People are trying to wrap their head around this buzzword of culture. It's been, you can't go onto LinkedIn without culture being the tag that's everywhere. Have you got any advice, Angus, to any chief people officers who are trying to grapple with this in the way that you have, and how they might make inroads into the C-suite to build the kind of incredible relationship that yourself and Peter clearly have, that one based on trust, respect, and a deeper understanding of people and culture? Any practical advice? And because I can say with a level of confidence, it ain't always like this.
Well, look, it's I flatter Pete, but I'm very lucky. I said the door was open, very open, and actually he could easily do my job, and he's better at that, so he's doing his job. So the point is, I think I would firstly choose carefully. If you've got a choice as a CPO, you're coming up, then you need a leader and leadership that is going to prosecute an agenda. Otherwise, you bang your head against the door, and it is all about leadership, essentially. And if it's led at the top, then everybody needs to follow, or they get off that particular bus. So the door's open, and then when the door's open, then just be very careful about it. You can't solve it quickly. It's a longer play. Have a strategy, and then treat it a bit like a science. Try and go after the things that you've got, the metrics that you have, and just collect them together, and then work out, you need a baseline to measure, then you want to move it on. You need to be able to measure it to improve it, and then use these committees, discussion committees, but don't make them too onerous and too governance led. They need to be conversations, and people need to talk and be able to express themselves. And we're not there yet. We're trying really hard, but if you've got those bits in play, then you've got a shot at it, I think.
Wow, thank you very much. Any thoughts or reflections, Peter, as we're wrapping up from yourself?
I think the most important thing for me is just get a good CPO. It's people are so important in our business, and get a good CPO in place to help you manage that relationship, because they will bring the science and the techniques to deliver what we sit down together and decide is the right strategy. So.
Wow, I mean, it's incredible. What a great reflection on the powerful relationship between the chief executive, the chief people officer, this increasingly strategic role that the CPO plays. And I genuinely see that partnership between the chief people officer and the CEO is now being fundamentally one of the most important. But of course, you've got a wonderful leadership team. You talked about Naomi, Peter, and no doubt many, many others who are making this huge contribution. It feels like it's a very kind of aligned sense. You talked about there's alignment, integration, collaboration, Angus, some of these visions for next year, and it feels like that's happening across the organisation with some of these working groups and committees focusing in on collaboration and culture. Such a powerful way of bringing those survey results. There's nothing worse than an engagement survey. How engaged do you feel? We're not very engaged. If only your organisation did this. And we go out a year later, how engaged do you feel? We're probably about the same level as last time you asked me, because you didn't do anything. Stop asking me. Just stop asking me how engaged I am. If you're not doing anything about it. But there you built those frameworks and the architecture that underpins the kind of people and culture approach. It's not just, as you said when we spoke, it's not just in the abstract, it's in the actual building, the fabric of the way that you're thinking about the organisation at shawgibbs. You've had an incredibly exciting period of growth through M&A, and I am fascinated in cultural alignment through mergers and acquisitions. And I think we might come back to this, Peter and Angus, if you're able to in the new year, because it's a topic which I think we're going to see more and more of. I think there's going to be more consolidation within professional services. We're going to see more acquisition, more PE backing, and more consolidation through M&A. So I've got a feeling that we could probably do a whole topic on mergers and acquisitions and creating that cultural fit and cultural alignment. But you gave some really great indicators and some helpful advice and guidance, and that you might go out and be kissing a lot of frogs, but be very careful about which ones that you're actually going to work with, to the point where you went from 12 to 13. I can't remember exactly out of how many, a couple of hundred, I think. Peter O'Connell, Angus McGregor, thank you so much. What an absolute joy on a Friday afternoon to have this conversation with you. You're now forever friends of the People and Culture Association, you'll become honorary members. As we said earlier, it's free anyway, so I'm not sure what an honorary membership gives you in addition to the existing free membership, but I think we'll kind of find some kind of title, Jonathan, for our honorary members. But we hope that you will very much stay in touch and continue to be part of the conversations through 26. Angus, I want to say thanks again for the case study. It really was a standout experience interviewing you and writing it up and contributing to the book. It's out on the 3rd of January. Obviously, Angus, you'll be getting your copy winging its way over to you, and the launch, as you said, Jonathan's on the 14th. It's published on the 3rd of January, so please do track it down. People and Culture, a practical guide for HR and leaders, to help, hopefully, fingers crossed, shine a light on some best practice. But we've heard the best practice here from shawgibbs, and for your generosity and time today, Peter and Angus, I want to say a huge thank you to both of you. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, it was great. Thanks very much, David. Jonathan.
It's been a real joy. Thank you.